and you can't always be sure what answer you're going to get. But if I were in their shoes, I would not have participated in that meeting. And as I said before, if I were Justice Roberts, I would not go through these motions until I knew the answer.
So is it a conflict of interest?
I agree with that analysis entirely. In fact, I'd go one step further. Let's take the people out, and let's say that it's not the president and the vice president. Okay, let's say it's the head of the Steelworkers Union, and there have been 4 cases recently brought before the Supreme Court on charges of corruption, and there's been 2 cases seeking an immediate injunction, and there have been 5 in-conference meetings to determine whether or not the court was going to take up the case. And then after that, and 1 case is remaining for review, and then the president of the Steelworkers Union goes and visits the Supreme Court. In my world, that's ex parte contact with the judges that are about to hear your case.
By the way, I think the president of the Steelworkers Union would have better taste than to go there.
I hear you. Okay, Charlotte, you got another question? Thank you for the call, Kenneth.
Yes, I do actually. We have a question from Ms. Drake. I guess it really plays right off of this where you were just talking. It's undetermined if it's a conflict of interest because Orley has filed a motion before the court that it's a conflict of interest for Justice Roberts and Scalia to actually swear in Obama.
Well, conflict of interest is opening an interesting can of worms.
I thought so too.
I call your attention to the fact that Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a former chief counsel for the ACLU, wrote the opinion in the Kentucky ACLU case about whether or not the Ten Commandments should stand in Kentucky. And apparently she didn't find any conflict of interest there. So asserting a conflict of interest, I suppose a conflict is in the eyes of the beholder.
Well, except in this particular case, if any justice stands up there with Obama and swears him in, that is implicitly saying that that justice accepts this man as eligible as president.
Okay.
Because if he doesn't, he shouldn't be conducting that ceremony. And if that's being done at the same time that a case is pending before the court, or other cases are clearly coming up, this issue hasn't been settled. This is that old situation in which the court, members of the court have said over and over again, we never comment on a pending case. Well, you never comment on a pending case literally. You never comment on a pending case figuratively. And I can't imagine a more figurative way of commenting on this issue in all of the cases that are involved here than by standing up with the man and swearing him in as president.
Okay, Steve, the people want to know about that INS document number you sent me the other day. Can you give us just a quick crust on that?
Yes, I will, and it's unfortunate that it took off the way it did, Ed. I mean, I can tell you that INS document, the lead that was given to us was from a confidential informant inside the Customs Service. The document, even though the document does not appear to have a recorded number, I still have groups that are researching this document with the intent of finding it. Now, the document is about and concerns the President-elect's rearrival in the United States from his trip to Pakistan and India in 1981, and that is the document that we are seeking to discover, and so that's what it is about. It is not about Stanley Ann Dunham's return from Kenya. It is about the trip back from Pakistan and India.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you clarified that. Chalice, go ahead and ask another question. We got a caller calling in, and I'll take him next.
Okay, a quick question from Wendy. She's wondering if we do find, with the documents, a relevant document, what's the best way to have it presented, especially where we're at right now? Would it be through a court case? Would you distribute it to the FBI or to Fitzgerald? I mean, how the Joint Chief of Staff? I guess President Bush won't be president anymore. So what do you do with it if we find his birth certificate?
Well, I'll jump on that one.
Thank you.
First of all, is the FBI investigating whether or not Senator Obama is eligible? Is the executive branch of the United States government investigating whether Senator Obama is eligible?
I don't think so.
Is the Supreme Court investigating it? Are any of the agencies you mentioned in the slightest concerned about whether or not the President of the United States is an American citizen and eligible under the constitutional fabric to hold the office? So if none of those institutions are interested, then any data that is discovered, any hard data that is discovered, that data needs to be published as quickly as it can, both on the internet, and it has to be preserved in terms of the way you would preserve any evidence, which is to say you have to control the chain of evidence to make sure that there is not going to be later suggestions of doctoring or forgery or any of that. And by the way, just between all of us listeners here, if anybody is tempted to create a forgery, rule it out. It is a waste of time. Don't do it.
Okay. Do you have a couple of minutes to maybe update us on your case, Roe versus Reed? I know you were meeting with your group yesterday.
Well, the beauty of the meeting with the plaintiffs group is that the plaintiffs group is interested in, these guys really have a heart for patriotism for the country.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to say that about the guys. Okay, there are some guys that are retired military personnel on the team, and there are other people who are standing up for their country as best as they possibly can. And so this group is in the process. And also, you know, one guy who's not in our plaintiff group but who is part of our group is Steve Marquise. And Steve Marquise is also, I mean, he's just been a fantastic godsend to what we're doing. And Steve Marquise is also helping us in terms of creating, you know, here's what you have to have. If you're going to create a machine that is going to change the political fabric of this country, we have to create an oiled machine. As I tell my clients, you know, the plane doesn't get off the tarmac without gas. And that means that we have to fuel this machine with money. And so there are people who are putting together a machine that is going to have some substantial resources, and we're talking, you know, 7 figures plus, to be able to start to build on a number of things. And of course, you know, Ed and Karen and you, Chalice, and the other team members there at Plains Radio are a big part of this, because we can't do anything without an application and the technology. And with God's blessing, Plains Radio continues to grow in size and scope, and that's going to be very important because the truth cannot be heard. And I think all of us know this. It is a certainty that the truth cannot be heard on broadcast media or in print media.
That's for sure.
And now it appears that the truth cannot be heard on cable media as well. Mm-hmm. So we've got one last opportunity for the truth to come out, and the internet and streaming broadcasts is it. And so you guys are a very important part of that, and it's part of the overall strategy to reestablish a constitutional republic in the United States. And so I would urge anybody who has a heart, anybody who's listening to this and says, I have a heart for the country, and I want to see us have a constitutionally elected president. And I think, now, Dr. Vieira, correct me if I'm wrong on this. You're a constitutional scholar. Would you say that the vast majority of the Constitution has been abrogated over the years?
Well, I would probably put another word to it. It has been neglected, all right? And, you know, your politician, your typical politician will go as far out on that limb as it will support him. And unfortunately, we, the people, have allowed that limb to grow and to grow and to grow, and the politician has simply followed his natural instincts, which is always in the direction of usurpation. I think it was Jefferson that makes that point over and over again. You give these people their head, and they're always going to go in the wrong direction. That's just the nature of power. It's our fault. It hasn't been abrogated, abnegated, what have you. It's simply been neglected by the people who should have been vigilant in its enforcement.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I've seen some of these things that are coming out now is concerning the Congress's power to completely veto the Constitution. I mean, I'm looking at the Republic right now, and I'm seeing a nation where, for instance, the Federal Reserve can, you know, obligate the federal government to trillions of dollars of debt without congressional approval, without the General Services Offices or General Office of Accounts giving any kind of approval to it, without any backroom research, and there's nothing. We just,
well, guys, I'll tell you what, we're at the end of the show. Each of you's got 30 seconds to sum up.
I got to say one thing, that the callers are saying, Dr. Vieira and Stephen, they want you to work together.
Well, we all need to work together.
There you go. We all do need to work together.
And I'll tell you what, I will have both of them back on next week sometime on some show.